Next question is from Helen. We're looking to borrow money in our SMSF to purchase a property. Can we be the lender to the SMSF as we have surplus cash?
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that one, Helen. And look, I haven't had this question for quite a while. So look, it's good to revisit this particular issue. When we look at this, the super laws specifically allow self-managed funds to use borrowings to buy an asset, to buy a single acquirable asset like property, just like you're suggesting. And nothing within the rules sets out where that funding or where that loan can come from. In fact, you can borrow money from a bank, another commercial lender, so like one of the big finance companies, or you could even source the borrowing. You could even borrow money from a related party or a member of the fund. So to answer the question, yes, you could be the lender to your SMSF under a limited recourse borrowing arrangement. Some issues that I would throw in there, some issues to consider. Not just to consider, issues that you must follow. You need to ensure that that loan from the related party or from really anyone to the SMSF is entered into and maintained on arm's length terms. In other words, if you're going to lend money to your SMSF, you can't treat your fund more favorably. You need to make sure that when you draft up the loan agreement, when you then carry out the terms of that loan, that they are on arm's length terms. And if they're not, let's just say that the terms of the loan aren't arm's length, they're not commercial, or the terms are, but you don't enforce those terms, then any income that comes from that asset, from the property, so the SMSF has borrowed money to buy the property, any money that comes from that property by way of rent or capital gains will get taxed at 45% in your SMSF instead of 15%. It will be deemed to be non-arm's length income. And the reason that is because you haven't maintained that asset on an arm's length basis. You're not paying the required interest or making the required repayments. So therefore, you don't get the tax benefit that comes with that. So the ATO has addressed this in many, many different ways. But to me, the most appropriate one and the best reference I can give you is a practical compliance guide that the ATO finalised in 2016. And I can't believe it's almost 9 years ago that this came out. Where's that time gone? And what this does, it specifically addresses what they consider to be arm's length terms, and therefore would result in the 15% tax applying, or zero if you're in pension phase, versus that nasty 45% tax. And they list about 10 different areas or issues and what they expect to see, what the requirements are that they expect to see. So when it comes to security, if I was to go to a bank today to borrow money to buy a property, well, they'd want a mortgage over that property. The same thing applies if you're lending money to your SMSF. A registered mortgage over the property is required. You don't need to provide a personal guarantee. That's not a requirement. Some banks will ask for it, but we're not looking at banks here. We're looking at related party loans. The ATO says you don't need to give a personal guarantee. So, but you've got this registered mortgage anyway, so that's providing that level of security. They require that every loan repayment is made up of both a principal and interest. I'll come back to interest-only loans shortly, but that's fine. Each payment is both principal interest and made on a monthly basis. So repayments need to be at least monthly. None of this annual interest or annual repayments. You need to have a written and executed loan agreement in place. So this is where paying someone to get a loan pack is really important. We shall have a executable and enforceable loan agreement, which the ATO expects to see. Then when we come to more specific terms, the interest rate, they give you a particular benchmark which you need to use, and it's based on the lending rate, the interest rate for standard variable interest rates for investors, so not homeowners, for investors. And you use the May rate for the following year. So in May 2025, you go on to the RBA, you find out what the indicative variable rate is for investors, and that's what you need to apply for the following financial year. Now, the interest rate, as I said, may be variable or fixed, but can only be fixed for a maximum of 5 years. And after 5 years, you've got to revert to variable interest rates. Now, that works in with the next requirement, which is the term of the loan. Related party loans to SMSFs, maximum of 15 years. And that includes that 5 year of fixed. So if you did 5 year of fixed, then have a 10-year variable term after that. You can't have a loan term that exceeds 15 years. And the maximum loan to value ratio, so how much you can borrow compared to what the asset's worth, is 70%. So 70% LVR, loan to value ratio, or loan to market value ratio, for both commercial and residential property. Now, so importantly with these is that we know these issues and requirements exist. We tick them off on establishment, and then on an ongoing basis, we follow that to make sure that we do meet these requirements ongoing, and that it's all well documented in writing and held on file for at least 7 years after that loan's been repaid. Jump on the website. We have a good article there around the borrowing rules, and we talk about these safe harbour terms. That's what the ACO refers to these as, safe harbour terms, in that article. So have a look at it, print it out, and just follow those as you need.